Do you want to play as Geralt of Rivington? Get it? Well, let me give you my Geralt build for Baldur's Gate 3, and we are starting with the Ranger class. I think this is probably the most thematic that Geralt is, being a monster hunter, being good in the wild. I think purely he is probably akin to a ranger. So that's what we're starting with. Now, this gives us a bunch of spells we can use to replicate our signs. But it also gives us strength saving throw proficiency, dexterity saving throw proficiency, and then proficiency with multiple things like light and medium armor, simple and martial weapons, and shields. So we're going to start with the Ranger class. Now, for your favoured enemy, I would class the Witcher, Geralt, as a Ranger Knight. You're sworn to serve a crown or nation and seek to bring its foes to ruin. Gain skill proficiency in history, to go with the knowledge that Geralt has, and armor proficiency with heavy armor, giving you a choice of having more options when it comes to having armors throughout the game. And for a natural explorer, I would give him Urban Tracker, gain proficiency in sleight of hand, and I think this is just a bit more useful because, you know, he's a Gwent player, he does have his signs he can do, he's very quick and nimble. I would do this personally. You could also do Beast Tamer, but I don't think Find Familiar is really a thematic thing for The Witcher. Okay, when it comes to your ability points, I would have something like this: 16 strength, 14 dexterity, 16 constitution, 12 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 8 charisma. If you wanted to, you could also do this to make your spells more powerful that we'll use, but I think extra dex is the way to go. If you really wanted to, you could balance everything out like this as well. Choice is yours. When it comes to your skill proficiencies, I would take investigation, I would take nature, and I would take survival. And we move on to level 2, and this brings us to Ranger level 2. This gives us our first level spell slots, as well as a bunch more spells, and a fighting style. And for your spells, we're going to take Hunter's Mark to begin with. It does use a bonus action. It deals an additional 1 to 6 whenever you hit a creature that has Hunter's Mark, and this acts as a really nice way of having sort of Geralt's Witcher sense, in my opinion. Because in the actual tabletop version, this also allows you to track enemies, and I think that's really good thematically. And we're going to pair this with Longstrider, increase a creature's movement speed by 3 meters, just to play into how quick and like how just much Geralt can keep going and going and going. And for a fighting style, we're going to take Defense. You get a +1 bonus to armor class while wearing armor. It's at level 3, we jump over to our first multiclass, and we're going to Fighter. Now, Fighter level 1 will give us a bunch of proficiencies we've already got, but it will also give us Second Wind. Bonus action to allow you to heal yourself 2 to 11 hit points. Really good. This will also give us a second fighting style, and for this one we're going to take Great Weapon Fighting. So when you roll a 1 or a 2 on a damage dice for an attack, with a two-handed melee weapon, that dice is re-rolled once. Now, you might say Geralt only uses one-handed weapons, and I would agree. You might also say Geralt dual wields, and I don't think he does. He uses 2 swords, but never at the same time, at least from what I've seen. In my opinion, and if you look at the Witcher 3 gameplay, for example, he will do a lot of attacks where he's holding his sword with both hands. So therefore, we're going to turn that thematically into a two-handed weapon, and we're going to take Great Weapon Fighting. Okay, level 4 brings us to Fighter level 2, and this gives us Action Surge. Immediately gain an extra action to use this turn, and this is a great fighter ability. Level 3 brings us to our specialization of Fighter. We are now level 5 overall, and for this one, we're going to take the Eldritch Knight. Now, if you wanted to, you could take the Battle Master, and that would give you a lot more maneuvers, and basically make you deal a lot more damage while on the battlefield. However, I think Eldritch Knight, for the spell options to coincide with the signs that the Witcher has, I think this just works better. For cantrips, we're going to take Blade Ward, take only half damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks, and this is to kind of reminisce the Quen sign. And we're also going to take Friends. The reason being is this is to kind of replicate the Axis sign, and how we can manipulate and sort of hypnotize people into doing what he wants. So those are our 2 cantrip choices. And for first level spells, we're going to take Burning Hands. You can probably guess this is to symbolize Igni. And once again, to symbolize our Quen, we're going to take Mage Armor. Protect a target from attacks. Its armor class to 13 plus its dexterity modifier. If you really wanted to, you could instead take Shield. The choice really is yours depending on your setup. And for a spell here, we're going to take Thunder Wave. This is to symbolize the Ard sign where he can throw enemies back. Thunder Wave is perfect for that. Okay, at level 6 we stick with Fighter for level 4, and this gives us our first feat. We also get one more spell. Now, if you haven't taken Mage Armor or Shield, at this point I would take Protection from Good and Evil. Not quite the same, but it is kind of a symbolism of the same Quen sign to protect yourself. If not, Chromatic Orb maybe, but to be honest I think thematically, Protection from Good and Evil, just a little bit more on point. And for a feat we are going to take the Ability Score Improvement, and we're going to dump our Strength up to 18. Okay, level 7 overall and level 5 Fighter. This is where we get our extra attack. And this is perfect because now we get 2 attacks per turn, and we're going to start dealing some huge damage. At level 8 we stick with Fighter level 6 to gain a new feat, and for this one we are going to take the Ability Score Improvement up to 20 for our Strength. Okay, level 9 overall we stick with the Fighter to level 7. This gives us War Magic. You've honed your body in Magic for War. After you cast a cantrip, you can make a weapon attack using a bonus action. So this is really, really good and can be very, very helpful in combat. Now for your spells here, I would take Scorching Ray, again, to symbolize Igni, and this is just a little bit better than your Burning Hands. And to symbolize Ard, I would take Gust of Wind. Again, not quite as good as Thunder Wave because it doesn't deal damage per se, but is a really nice way of pushing enemies around. Okay, level 10 we stick with Fighter level 8, and we have one more spell we can use here. And for your expended spell here, we're going to take something a little left field, and we're going to take Hold Person. Hold a humanoid enemy still. They can't move, act, or react. Attacks from within 3 meters are always critical hits. Now this is probably better on a pure spellcaster, so if you have a wizard or a sorcerer, it's going to be better on them because they're going to have a higher spell save DC. However, I think thematically this is probably the best way to get the Yrden sign into your build. There's not really many options. Ideally, you're probably going to be using your bonus action to concentrate on Hunter's Mark to get that extra damage. But if you want to try Whole Person, this would be my choice. And now at this point you have multiple options you could do. You could take your ability score improvement and bump your Constitution up to 18. Could bump your dexterity up to 16. For me personally, I would either take Great Weapon Master or I would take Savage Attacker. One of those 4 options I think would be your best bet. So Savage Attacker, when making melee weapon attacks, you roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result. Great Weapon Master, you take a -5 to aim for a solid 10 damage, and if you land a crit or kill a target with a melee weapon attack, you can make another melee weapon attack as a bonus action. So really your choices, you've got quite a few at this point. Take whatever one you think is going to be more helpful to you up to this point. If you think you need more health, get the Constitution. If you think you need a bit more initiative or whatever, maybe go for Alert and get the +5 to bonus to initiative, and you can't be surprised. Lots of good options here. So I would sort of think about those. +2 to your Constitution. Instead of a +2 to Dex, go for Alert, Great Weapon Master, or Savage Attacker. I'm going to take Great Weapon Master personally. Now at level 11 we're actually going to dip over to the Wizard subclass. A little bit left field, but there is a reason. The Witcher is a very big monster hunter, as you know, and he absolutely loves alchemy. So that is why we're dipping over to this one. Now for your cantrips at this point, I don't really think there's anything that fits too thematically, so we're just going to take True Strike, Dancing Lights, and Light just to avoid taking something like Acid Splash, because I don't think I've ever seen Geralt throw acid out of his hands, for example. And again, we have a bunch of spells you can choose from, and most of the spells we've already got we have, so we don't need anything else. If you were to do this, I'd probably take Charm Person, because this will symbolise the Ard sign again. I'd take Expeditious Retreat, just so you can dash away. Enhanced Leap to be able to jump further. False Life because maybe he's drank some sort of elixir to help him boost up his health. Grease because again this could be another alchemy type concoction that he's thrown around. And then maybe Sleep because once again this could be another thing. But to be honest, these spells aren't amazing for this late in the game. Doesn't really matter what you pick, you're probably going to save your spell slots for things like Scorching Ray and Hunter's Mark. And then our final level, level 2 Wizard, we get to pick our specialization. And now there's only one to do for this if we want to do the alchemy, and that is Transmutation. So Transmutation Savant, and this means we can learn spells, and what is good, we can now, because of our spell levels, we can learn spells from scrolls on levels 2 and 3 if you need to. But also Experimental Alchemy. You can brew 2 alchemical solutions instead of 1 when combining extracts, which is just amazing. Now again, we have more spells here. Honestly, kind of take anything. Visions take Featherfall and Disguise Self. Okay, so that was our build, levels 1 to 12. Let's go over our items. Now Geralt doesn't use a helmet per se, but if you wanted to, I would probably go with Sevarok's Horned Helmet. Again, this build isn't really designed for it, but if you wanted to. Constitution saving throw +1. Gain Dark Vision. Number we need to roll a crit is reduced to 19, and we cannot be frightened or afflicted with other emotion-altering conditions. Now we're going with the Cindermoth Cloak. A creature that damages the wearer within 2 meters receives burning. This is to symbolize like Igni and Quen combined. I think thematically it kind of works. The Evasive Shoes, +1 to acrobatics and our armor class, boosting our armor class to a lovely 20, as you can see there. We have the Flawed Helldusk Armor. When you hit by a foe within 2 meters, it might take 1 to 4 fire damage. This pairs very nicely with our cloak. We also take 1 less piercing damage. Now if you don't want the disadvantage on stealth checks, or if you don't want to use heavy armor because you think medium armor is better, I would personally probably go with the Armor of Agility. Saving throws +2. For gloves, we're using the Helldusk Gloves. +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DCs. This is good for our spells, aka our signs. And Infernal Touch. Your weapon attacks do an additional 1 to 6 fire damage, so this is kind of like just Geralt being able to put the runes on his swords. The Ring of Regeneration. Regain 1 to 4 hit points at the start of your turn. The Killer Sweetheart. So when you kill a creature, your next attack roll will be a critical hit. Once spent, this effect refreshes after a long rest. Now for an amulet, you could go for the Surgeon's Amulet, which will, when you do a critical, cause the enemy to become paralysed. If you didn't want to do that, you could go with the Amulet of Greater Health. Now I personally prefer putting this on to wizards and sorcerers that are purely based, just so they can hold their concentration on spells better. But if you did want to do this, feel free to. I would probably respec your constitution, put it back down to like 8, bump your intelligence up, your wisdom up, your charisma, all that sort of stuff. Basically just respec that one ability, but keep the build the same. For a sword, we're doing the Sword of Chaos. On a hit, regain 1 to 6 hit points, and this does added necrotic damage. And I think, again, just kind of playing into the fact that Geralt can put those runes onto his swords, and I think at max you can do like 3 different runes. So we've got the fire, and we've got the necrotic. And of course, what would Geralt be without his little handy crossbow, which you'll probably never use for this build. So let's go find some combat, and we'll show this off. Okay, now as soon as you leave camp, there are a couple of things to do. Because we are an Eldritch Knight, we can weapon bond our weapon, which now means we aren't able to drop it, or people can't knock it out of our hand. The other thing, if you have it, just cast False Life and get those 7 temporary hit points. You might as well. Okay, you can see it is our turn, and now we took damage because I accidentally blew up an explosive barrel. But you see our ring triggered and we regained 1 hit point. Now, basically, this build is very simple. We're just going to hit things really, really hard. We're going to make sure Great Weapon Master is turned on. So if we would come up here, you see we have a 90% chance to hit. If I was to come here, turn it off, 95%. So honestly, it's always worth keeping this on as long as you don't have something like disadvantage, anything like that. And it's really simple. We're just going to hit things really hard, and you can see just how much damage we do. And there you go. You'll notice we have Executioner. We healed thanks to our lovely rings, and because we have Executioner and we have the ability to come over here, we can do a bonus action attack thanks to Great Weapon Master. And with Executioner, it's going to be a guaranteed crit. And there you go. Now, not the biggest of crits for some reason, but huge amount of damage. And you see our AC is really good, so they're missing their attacks. And again, another 4 hit points just healed. And while this build is mainly just hit things really, really hard, the benefit is, and we do have our spells as backup, and we have multiple other things like this. For example, massive crit then. If we swing again, unfortunately we miss, so we don't get that attack. But we could bonus action and Hunter's Mark. And now we should have done this in the first round, but I forgot personally, I won't lie. But we could then action surge, and we basically get more attacks with extra damage just like that. That we can just keep swinging for the fences. And on our next turn, we can reapply our Hunter's Mark without expending a spell slot to a new enemy. And this is where we get to go show off some of our moves, so let's do our Quinn Sign. And there you go, lovely big miss. And that time we only took 6 damage and we saved our Hunter's Mark concentration. And like I said, we have the option of doing spells to go alongside our signs. So for example, if we were to do our Thunder Wave, we'll do it at 2nd level just to show it off. And again, this is to symbolise our ability of doing Ard. And there you go, we hit them with a huge wave of damage. And as a bonus action, if we needed to, we could come in here with a 2nd Wind. And we can heal up. And it's a big heal at level 12. And again, as I said, as a bonus action, we can reapply our Hunter's Mark for free. And that's placed on them. And now our weapon attacks will do extra damage. But, once again, we have our ability to do more and more spells. Now, as a cantrip, we can do Firebolt. And if you remember, one of our abilities was, if we were to use a cantrip, we did 19 damage. As a bonus action, we could come in and do one of our main attacks. And obviously, because we reapplied our Hunter's Mark, we lost our bonus action. But this is just an example of what you could do if you had your bonus attack available. You could do your cantrip onto an enemy to pick them off if need be, and then you can still swing at the enemy in front of you. So this build really gives you a lot of options you can use your bonus action for. So if you will need to reapply your Hunter's Mark, you can. If you kill something, you can do another attack with your bonus action. If you use a cantrip, you can still do a weapon attack with your bonus action. So much adaptability with it. And again, we get to show off our Yarden sign. Is it Yarden? No, the protective shield one, whichever one that is. It's Quen, isn't it? It's Quen. Just like that. And again, perfect. And that's all this build is. It's mainly just hitting things really hard. But it's also the ability to then have the adaptability to be able to cast spells, to make loads of alchemy potions, whatever you need to do. And as you saw, we just killed the last person there. So, we haven't quite got enough room to jump in, so let's just jump behind. And what we can do is we can start swinging from here too. And a massive crit just then, and more health healed. And we can reapply our Hunter's Mark if need be with our next bonus action. And then we just swing for the fences. And hopefully don't miss. There you go, another big hit, maybe even a pommel strike if you want to. And that's the gist of this build, just hit things as hard as you can. And again, more chances for us to use our Yarden sign. And there we go, a big crit to end the fight. So that is my Geralt of Rivera build. Now, please bear in mind, if we were to come in here, you can see we've used all our 1st and 2nd level spell slots. If we short rest,
I'll fill that one later.
They do not return, so please bear that in mind. But that has been my build guide. If you have enjoyed, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you'd do differently, what the spells or weapons you would use, items, that sort of thing. If you have, please drop the episode a like, it helps me amazingly, and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.